What's up, everybody, and welcome to the FPL WildCats Live. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, today we are missing one of the four Wildcats, and Nim is feeling a bit under the weather. If you do want to know how Nim has been doing in the FPL game, then do go check out her channel where she has put out her own videos. She's managed to build up the strength to do that, and go give her a sub as well, because she's very close to 2k subs as well. We wish you the best in getting well, Nim, and we will now get into looking forward towards game week 38. But before we do that, get your questions in and we will discuss how we did in game week 37. So Brett, I guess I'll hand over to you first. Let us know how you did.
Sure. Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, I did okay. The decision this week for me was basically to transfer out Vardy away to Man City, and that turned out to be a decent decision because he didn't have a shot on target, blanked against a City side that are defending so well. The negative was I brought in Marcus Rashford against Huddersfield, and he got 2 points as well. So sort of even swap there, and a disappointing performance from him and United in general. So that was a bit frustrating. Obviously deliberated about the Son situation. Shall I transfer out Son? He's been a bit of a troll for me this season. And yeah, obviously could never have envisaged him getting a red card and minus 2 points. I mean, Son, he's like the nicest player in the league. Like, he doesn't get red cards, but that just, yeah, I put a tweet out even before the game saying, will this be the day he delivers? And then got a red card within like 30 minutes. So, yeah, it was a 45-point week, which is quite a low score, but there's so many low scores this week. So my rank basically stayed the same. And the points came from Doherty and Alexander-Arnold. So just points from defence, really. Blanks all around. Apart from that, captain Sterling obviously blanked with 3 points, which ended up being a better captain than lots of people's Aguero, who got 2. So that's a small positive. And I guess the other positive is having Salah. You know, I kept him on the wild card and only 7 points this week, but a lot of people don't have him now. You know, they've just stuck with Mane and 2 defenders because of the 13 million that it costs for Salah. And in the last 5 or 6 game weeks, he's got like 50 points. You know, he's really hit a nice consistent run of form to end the season. So I feel good having Salah now. Even despite this injury, I think he'll play in the last game. So, yeah, I'm at 21k. I dropped about 1,000 places with 45. So not too bad. You know, it's okay. And yeah, hopefully I can sneak into the top 20k for the last game week now.
Yeah, I think Salah's been one of those players that has been it's kind of turned into a differential, especially around the 20k, 10k ranks. Lots of people I ditched him. Kind of wish I hadn't now. So I think keeping Salah was definitely a good move.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's not like an uber differential, but for Salah to be 30% owned-ish around the 10k, 20k, for someone like Salah to only be owned by that many rather than like 55 or 60%, it does make a difference then. So now I get points from him without being captained, and I still make gains on the rank, which is quite rare in the case of Salah,
Okay, and Kurt, how did your team do?
Been dreading this. I've been dreading this. I had a dreadful game week. I haven't even done my team. I had Son, like a lot of other people, and I haven't even gone on. I've only just transferred him out now because I knew this game week was bad. I haven't even been on the game. I got 32 points. It was dreadful from top to bottom. Just bad luck after bad luck. Pogba. Sometimes you get a good Pogba, a lot of the times you get a bad Pogba. No returns in the last 4, 2, 2, 2 and 2. Away against Huddersfield. Couldn't even get the clean sheet points against an already relegated, dreadful looking Huddersfield team. Vice captain was Son, so not going to complain too much. I'd rather have 4 points than -4. Look at the positives. And the only other positive was my attack. Contrary to Brett, Aubameyang got A, and coming off the bench, an automatic substitution was Glenn Murray, who I stuck as my first sub because I just had a sneaky feeling if anyone's going to score, it will be Glenn Murray. And it ended up, really coming in to help me because Emerson didn't play. And to be fair, if Emerson would have played, it still would have been clean sheet points, but
yeah, true.
A bit lower than normal. But yeah, De Gea clean sheet. That was a transfer I made, I believe, wiped out. I brought Wan-Bissaka I brought in recently. Palace, I thought, Palace have got a decent chance away against Cardiff. It's 3-2. Quite a good game, actually, but no attacking returns, no bonus points, no clean sheet, no nothing. Kolasinac and Benderek also getting one. You've also got Sterling, who's a bit like a Son, I suppose, looking at the Champions League in the first half tonight. Very tired, I think. Sterling had a tremendous season. You'd forgive him if City win the league and he ends up not really scoring or assisting too much, either in this weekend's game or the FA Cup final. You'd forgive him really because he's had such a good season, and a few bad game weeks for returns it makes you forget 17 goals and 14 assists throughout the entire season. So it's not too bad indeed, but another faltering. I took a risk on the Gundogan. That's 3 points. Ended up being one of my highest scorers this week, so I can't complain too much. But all in all, it's just dreadful. So I've made some really stupid substitutions and transfers this game week because I've still got my triple captain to use.
Oh, nice.
I'm just glad I didn't go with what I thought was my gut and triple captain Pogba last week because I'd be, not very happy, put it that way. But yeah, 32 points. Sums up my season, really. Just rubbish.
Yeah, it's funny because maybe 6 or 7 game weeks ago, maybe a bit longer, when Pogba was really firing, everyone was sort of saving their triple captain for the last couple of game weeks and thinking, well, United have got Huddersfield and Cardiff. Maybe there's a triple captain Pogba opportunity there. And that's very quickly gone out the window now. So people with the triple captain left for this week is kind of like, it's not an easy choice now. And in 37, some people still had it and they went for Aguero. And even that didn't pay off, lots of triple captain blanks there. So, and he was unlucky not to score, mind. I was breathing a sigh of relief. I mean, off the line, that would have hit the round a lot more.
Okay, and I guess I should quickly cover my team. Wasn't quite as good as Brett, 43. So that's 2 less.
2-point gain. Awesome.
Yeah, so you're catching
Massive.
me. You're catching me. Also, apologies if my voice is deep. Brett did say that to me before we started. I am slightly sick. But I didn't realise I was that sick. Nothing really has changed with my settings. But as far as how I did, 14,273 is now my rank, a drop of about 1,000k. Kind of shows that not many people around my rank did very well. The star players were Alexander, who has been a bit of a hero recently.
Absolutely.
And Alexander Arnold, seen recently how he can pull an assist out of his hat. So other than that, my top scorers after those two were Sterling on 3 and Lloris on 3. So that's pretty much how bad it was. No goals in the team at all. However, I did get the Son call right. I managed to take him out of my side.
Yeah, so great shout.
Yeah, I seem to, I seem to get Son out at the right time. I don't think there was any right time to get Son in this time. But if there was a right time to get rid of a Son, it was before he got a red card. But it is very interesting to see how Spurs are collapsing. I did bring in Milivojevic. Unfortunately, I brought in the one Crystal Palace player who didn't score from their midfield and attack in their victory. And I captained Aguero. I thought it was going to be quite an open game. With lots of goals, and it was kind of the opposite. But Leicester did definitely impress me.
They did. Yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah, and Jota, I just can't believe he didn't get a goal. With the performance he put in, I thought it would be in the bag. But I can't complain too much because I didn't fall in rank too much. Top 10k is still possible if I pull something out of the bag with a different. So we'll see
nice.
With that.
Yeah, I think the great move about you getting rid of Son, I mean, you couldn't have in your wildest dreams imagine it going that well, like getting rid of Son and then getting a red card. But the great thing about that move now is that for people who have still got him like me, it's not only a -2, but essentially a -6, because if I want to change my squad up, now that's an extra transfer I didn't want to have to make. So it's almost like a -6 for that red card, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, and you've got that headache out of your way now, Jay. You've used a transfer and you haven't got to make an extra move and lose another 4 points for next week, so it puts you in a good position.
Yeah, as far as I've seen, a lot of people are thinking of just benching him, which is a very expensive bench. But it is the final game week of the season, so I suppose that is why I consider.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, just as if you've joined us recently, if you do want to know how Nim has done, do go and check her show out, check her video out. She does manage to get herself together for one video this week. But are there any questions in the chat we can get into?
There is, and I'll quickly say for Nim, I would say this is probably the best stream she could have missed in terms of. I don't think she would have enjoyed talking about her game week too much. I won't go into too much detail, but from what she's told us, she has had a bit of a mare. So sorry about that, Nim, and I hope you feel better soon, in health and in FPL terms. But I'm sure she'll bounce back for the final game week. A couple of questions. So Marcus L wants to know, should he ditch Lacazette and Hazard for the final game week? And also wants us to touch on some Southampton options as well. Obviously, they got Huddersfield at home, so quite a juicy fixture there. So what do you think, Jay? I mean, first of all, he's talking about ditching Hazard, I think. So what's your thoughts there? It sounds a bit of a bold one.
I mean, if it was me, I wouldn't be getting rid of Hazard. Hazard seems to be one of the players you definitely be keeping going into game week. Some are calling it his swan song. I personally think he's better at home. So generally, if this was a home game, I definitely wouldn't be considering it. But I suppose it's one of those things of if you want someone that's going to make a difference, is Hazard one of those players? I would still say he is, because if you had him this week, I think he would have made quite a big difference. So I wouldn't consider getting rid of Hazard myself. As far as Southampton, I do really like Redmond. I think there's a couple of fixtures game with where see some players maybe getting a haul or so. Redmond is one I like the look of. If you can predict who's playing up front, out of Shane Long and Danny Ings, potentially go with one of them. James Ward-Prowse, I believe, also missed game week 37, didn't start, so he could be a shout. Hopefully, Huddersfield don't score. So if you do still have Valerie and Ben Narak.
Yeah, definitely. The 3-0 defeat for Southampton last week kind of bodes well for maybe getting in Ward-Prowse, because he didn't play that game. They've lost heavily, a bit of an experimental side because they're safe now. But after losing by 3-0, you'd fancy now him to throw Ward-Prowse back in because they were in decent form with him playing. So I do think he's a good option. And Redmond will probably touch upon some Son replacements soon, because that will be quite a hot topic this week. But Redmond is certainly one on top of the list for me there, to replace Son as well. So Kurt, he's also talking about dropping Lacazette for this last game week. What are your thoughts there on, an Arsenal side who are a little bit out of form? None of these teams want to finish top four. They look to have blown it now. Maybe not so much to play for in the last game. So what do you think about maybe dropping Lacazette for the final game week?
For me, it's a bold move. It could pay off, but it depends on who you bring in. Because I think it's quite a tough game, Burnley.
Yeah,
if you earlier on in the season, January, you're thinking, Burnley, they're there for the taking. They're not looking too good. I think for me, it's a bit of a tough game, but it's just whatever way you look at it. It could be one last game, get as many goals as you can for those goal bonuses, whatever they've got X, Y, Z in their contracts. It could also be an idea for Unai Emery to rest a few players because they've got a tough second leg still to get through, granted they're out in front.
That's a good point.
And they might be looking at Lacazette to play the 90 there just to see him through. Then they'll have the final, in which they probably could do with Lacazette and all the other important players resting that game. So I think as long as you find a decent replacement, maybe an Aguero type player, I think it's probably worth taking out. Even maybe more price specific, Bobby Firmino, if he's fit. I'm not sure about his injury status. I haven't looked up too much of it.
Firmino.
The hate for Firmino has transitioned from me to Jay now. It's quite nice to see someone else in some agony.
Just he was my way of covering Salah, having both Mane and Firmino, and it just really hasn't worked at all. And he had that little cameo against Barcelona away. I was like, okay, he might be able to play game week 37 again. Nowhere to be seen. And the way they play against Barcelona, I'm now worried that's it. They're not even going to bother putting him in.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it opens up the door for Divock Origi then, because he was very good in the final. A player that I think needs at certain times in the last couple of years needed whatever team he's played for when he left on loan as well. Probably needed a rocket up his bum for a lot of the games, but he worked hard in that game and he reaped the rewards, even if it is, a really clever bit of thinking for his second goal from Trent AA and the first goal, right place, right time. Just the fact of making those runs. Could have had a few more as well, maybe, if luck was, I say if luck was on Liverpool's side, they already beat 4-0 Barcelona, but maybe if they had a bit more luck on their sides, who knows? But it could open up for another player potentially. You've got a 5.5 million defender or midfielder. Maybe you can go premium from there as well. Maybe take a -4. It opens up the door, but if Firmino's fit and you sense he might start, I'd say go Firmino. But who knows?
So I've put in the chat, I've asked Marcus who he's actually considering. I'd be, if he is thinking to drop Lacazette and Hazard, I'd be interested to see who he's lining up to replace, who his thoughts are on. But that is a good point regarding the Europa League, because both Chelsea and Arsenal have to play a game before the weekend anyway. So kind of wait to see what lineups are there. Will Hazard hasn't been starting much of these Europa League games. Will he start that one? I'm sure, like John said, because it's the last couple of games for Hazard now at Chelsea, most likely he'd probably feature in both. I would say certainly in the last Premier League game of the season, and there's incentive there for him to do well, and he's coming into it in very good form. So granted, his home form is much better than away, but I don't think Hazard out is necessary. It's at the moment he's a little bit of a differential within the top rankings as well. Not everyone has him, So Lacazette would be one of the two that would be more justified to maybe get rid of. If there's no other fires to put out, because it has been quite random with the selections of Aubameyang, Lacazette. Emery switched the team around a lot. They've got this Europa League game, and Burnley away. It's not a fixture I like for Arsenal. Lots of teams can struggle away to Burnley. Arsenal's form away from home is pretty shambolic. And ironically, I've considered, looking at differentials, Chris Wood against Arsenal is someone I've actually considered this week. Because I always expect the worst from Arsenal away from home, especially this season. So, right. Marcus has actually replied, but he hasn't mentioned who he's going to select yet. So we'll touch back on that later. So he got us to talk about some Southampton options, and that leads on to a question from Sheriff. Oh, actually, no, from Edison Massini. He's thinking of playing Gunn in goal for Southampton this week instead of Lloris, who's obviously £1 million more expensive. So what do we think about benching Lloris at home to Everton this week and playing Gunn at home to Huddersfield? Is that the right choice, do you think? What do you reckon, Jay?
Well, right now I've pretty much done the exact same thing, except I've got Ben Foster, and I'm going to take the risk of Ben Foster potentially keeping the clean sheet over Lloris. For me, just that Spurs side don't look like they're going to end the season well, whereas they're playing an Everton side that have been ending the season well. I don't see a clean sheet for Spurs. It's definitely possible, but my gut also thinks that Foster in goal could be a bit more differential than Lloris anyway. And I don't know what West Ham turn up. I know recently West Ham have had 2 good performances against Spurs and Southampton.
They're so unpredictable, aren't they?
But they're so unpredictable, you never know. They might just have a complete off day. That being said, I'm also looking at Arnautovic. So you just never know with West Ham, and it's completely possible that Watford, although they don't often keep clean sheets, could keep a clean sheet in this one. And usually if he does keep a clean sheet, he also gets a lot of save points as well. Or a lot of saves, which then come to save points. So I'm probably going to do the same. So I don't see anything wrong with dropping Lloris to the bench. It's only one more game week.
And you think Gunn, at home to Huddersfield?
I would fancy it. I know Huddersfield has scored.
It looks good on paper, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jay, say again. Did you?
Oh, yeah, I just said, I just think Huddersfield have scored recently. But
they have. Yeah, it's still any team on their day can nick a goal, whether it's a good goal or a bad one. But probability-wise, this season has been, you've got more chance of keeping a clean sheet against Huddersfield, haven't you? There's a good chance of that there. It's a lot more easy to predict than it is, against the likes of a West Ham or someone like that. It's only if a team is at home to Huddersfield and at home to Cardiff, they're the two where you think, I've got a good chance of a clean sheet here. So I've got Valerie, and obviously I'll certainly start him at home to Huddersfield. And if I had Gunn, I would too. I would start him as well, because it is Huddersfield, and if they nick a goal, so be it. But you've got to kind of play what you think is the probability wise, and I think that's a good shout, to be fair. And Spurs are playing Everton, and Spurs are in bad form, and they're losing 2-0 tonight. They're just not playing well, and Everton are the opposite. They're scoring goals, and even though Spurs beat Everton earlier in the season, it was like a 6-2. It was a goal fest. It could be another goal fest. So cool. Okay. This is a good question. This is from Sheriff ED, and it's a problem I'm struggling with this game week. He wants to know what to do with Wolves. A lot of us have got 2 or 3 Wolves players now coming into game week 38 away to Liverpool, who are defending so well. Kurt, have you got any Wolves players going into this week? And if so, what are your thoughts? Are you going to play them or?
No, I have not. I don't think that probably one of the big reasons why I haven't done too well. I don't think I've owned too many Wolves players at all this season. I've got none at the moment. Obviously, away against Liverpool, I'm looking at none. I think potentially hit him on the counter-attack. Depending on score lines, tensions are going to be high. It's going to be a completely different ball game to a few months ago, maybe, because everything is on the line. It's the final game of the season. No stone can be left unturned. So there's a potential that maybe Liverpool make a mistake at the back, concede early on. All of a sudden, they are set up to counter straight away. And I think the way Wolves have looked this season, they could potentially pull an upset off. But I also think, at the same time, the way the team looked against Barcelona, they put any sort of performance in like that. And bearing in mind, the game starts on a Sunday. They've got a 5-day rest. They're playing at home anyway, no long travels. I think it's set up for, if you've got an attacker, keep them. Jimenez, Jota, anyone like that, keep them. If you've got a defender, I'd say get rid of them. 12 to back that, my stupid move for the last game week, I've brought in Xherdan Shaqiri and I've given him triple captain. I just think I don't think Salah's going to be back. I think I'll give Shaqiri a chance because they're in the Champions League final, and I think Shaqiri will really rip them to shreds. I think the only problem is Liverpool's back line and Wolves' back line. I think there'll be goals both sides. So keep the attackers in, but I think ditch the defenders in my eyes.
What about you, Jay? I mean, you've probably got at least 2 or 3 Wolves players, haven't you?
I've got 2. I got rid of Doherty a while back. Jota and Jimenez.
Yeah, sure.
See, for me, I almost feel better when Wolves play a big team than when they play a small team. The amount of times I've looked at my Wolves players against small, like, say, a Cardiff, Huddersfield, and thought, okay, this is set up nicely, this should be a good game week. And then they really don't do much. And then put them against anyone top half of the table, and then Wolves look really good. They're set up to counter-attack. They're set up to score goals on the break, and they always perform better when they're playing someone better than, or conceivably better than they are. So, for me, I can't see myself getting rid of any Wolves players. Probably at least leave one of them. With Jota's performance last game week, it may be him. Jimenez may be one that I do consider transferring out, but I definitely wouldn't be against having any of the Wolves players, attackers anyway, starting for me. And when I say attackers, I mean Jota and Jimenez. I think those 2 are the standout options. Maybe then Donker because of his price and his consistency recently, but he's not the type of player, in my eyes, that's likely to haul. So I think it could be a very open game, that one. I think there's going to be more goals in Liverpool Wolves than there will be potentially in Man City, Brighton, Hove Albion, because Brighton on their day can put in a good defensive performance.
They can, and we've seen Burnley and Leicester both do it against City now, where City have come through and won both games, but it's only been a 0-0, so they're not firing on all cylinders at the moment, and it's away to Brighton, and they will just try and they'll park the bus basically and try and frustrate, so it's just the difficulty is I've got 3 Wolves players at the moment and 3 Liverpool. Now, I'm almost certainly going to bench Doherty away to Liverpool because even though he can produce attacking returns, it's basically guaranteed they're not going to keep a clean sheet away to Liverpool. You wouldn't think so anyway. But it's just that horrible feeling of having 5 or 6 players in one fixture, and that's what bothers me. Then there's all these other games being played, and there's all these kind of games that I'm not covering, like Palace and Bournemouth. That could be a goal fest, and it's just having so many players wrapped up in one game that has me a bit concerned. So even though I want to play Jimenez because of his ownership, because if I don't play Jimenez, and that I could drop below my personal best of 26k, and I'm so keen to beat that. But at the same time, I don't really want to play Jimenez. It's more, well, I'll be so annoyed if he racks up points. Jota has played out of his skin in the last game and didn't return. So I'm like, well, he's playing so well at the moment. Wolves love playing the top six, like you said, Jay. Oh, and at the same time, I'm saying I'm going to bench Doherty, but I've got no other one player to come in for him, really. So I have to take a -4 to get rid of Doherty. And if I take a -4 for a defender, I need a clean sheet minimum just to break even. I need 6 points, So I might even end up playing all three. This is a really tough one for me, but it's not ideal at all. A point that Edison makes in the comments, which is quite interesting, because Leicester obviously lost now to City, Wolves have 7th place cemented. They're confirmed to finish 7th now, which is obviously an amazing finish. But perhaps there's less incentive for Wolves now because they've got that wrapped up. My gut says they're going to be right up for it because that team just will want to cause an upset, won't they? Like they have all season. But that is a good point to consider. They have got 7th wrapped up. They can't drop down to 8th now. They've kind of got that potential European spot covered. So that's a good point. But yeah, that's a very, very tough one. But they like playing the top 6 and they're in good form. So I'll probably play at least 2 in the end. And I can't argue with that, Right. Just to quickly go back.
By the way, hi Nim. Nim's in the chat.
Oh, yes. Nim's in the chat, guys. Hi, Nim. Hope you're feeling all right. She says sorry she can't make it, but she's just trying to rest up, so no problem at all. So just quickly going back to what Marcus was asking earlier. He basically says he doesn't know about who he's going to replace for Lacazette and Hazard. He's basically kind of relying on our advice. He says, sorry to bombard you with questions. He really wants to know some tactics on maintaining a mini league lead. So he's leading his mini league by about 35 points, I think he said. So what kind of advice, so Jay, here's a scenario. You're 18 points ahead of me now, right? Just to try and relate to this guy. Now, let's say you wanted to keep that lead. What advice would you give to Marcus to hold that lead, to not leave yourself vulnerable?
Well, if I'm
I'll take some notes.
I'm not sure I should answer this now. I mean, one thing, if I'm actually relating it to your team and if I wanted to stay above you, I'm worried about Salah. So with that in mind, what I would do is you look at the team that are the closest catching you up. If there's more than one team, then you've got to kind of balance out who do you think, which team's going to have the better game week. But if there's only one real rival for you, I would see what player they have that you are worried about scoring and then see if there's any way you could get that player in. That way, if that player does go and score, you've covered at least those points. Now, there's going to be some players that they have that you may not look at and think they're going to score, and they do go and score. There's nothing you can really do about that. You just got to try and hedge your bets on covering the moves that they've already made that could help them catch you up. Now, the one problem is you're not necessarily going to know who they transfer in. So you could look at their side and think who they might transfer out for this game week. And that way you can then kind of try and figure out who they might transfer in as well. But for me, it would literally be try and get the same points that they get. Because if you get the same points, they can't really catch you up.
Yeah, exactly. You agree with that, Kurt? If you were leading a mini league, I mean, 35 points is quite a healthy lead. I think it's in Fantasy iTeam, though, maybe not FPL, I'm not sure. But that still seems quite like a big margin, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is big, but all it takes is one risky captain choice from either player, and you've got a potential 20-point gain, a 20-point loss. But yeah, look at his players, see what his team is, but go with the most owned players. And Spurs have just scored. It's 2-1.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Lucas Moura scored. Back to my point anyway. I got a bit distracted. It's just about owning the most owned players for me. I think if you look at, you look down at the team, you think, right, Salah's there. You're looking at, potential. He's even maybe risking Jimenez there. Looking at other players, maybe he's got Sterling as well. You haven't got any of those three. You've got to think, right, well, all three of them are highly owned. Maybe the people below have also got those three as well. Look at get Sterling in. Look at get Salah in. Those two could be key in the last game, especially with both looking to try and outscore each other and get as many goals as they can for the Premier League. They want to win convincingly just in case anything happens. But that'd be my third. Own players. It's good noise.
Are you getting that heavy noise?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's on the screen, but I'm going to have to take my headphones off a second because that's really loud.
I think he's coming from Jay because I can't hear him talk at all.
Right, just bear with us a sec, guys, if you can still hear me. If you don't know if you can hear that fuzzing, the guys that are watching the stream, but we're getting this feedback in our ears at the moment, so it's a bit tricky to communicate. So I think Jay's got his concentration face on. He's just trying to get it sorted.
Maybe just a simple unplug and plug back in, Jay, or would that mess the OBS up? I think it stops. It seems to stop if one of us is talking. So one of us got to try and continually talk. At least it stops for me. There we go.
Oh, that's better. Okay, I think we're safe now. I don't know if you could hear that, guys, but it seems to be all right now. Jay, are you still with us?
Hopefully.
Yes, we can.
There we go.
Good. Sweet. Okay. So just to finish off then, so he's 35 points ahead. Like you said, I think if one of his differentials goes huge, there's not much you can do about that. But if you cover, like you said, the bigger players, the ones that are most likely to explode, if he has the likes of Salah or Aguero or Sterling, you've got a 35-point lead there. So they're the kind of players that I would want to cover. They're the ones that would worry me the most going into the game week, the real expensive and explosive players. If he nails a differential, there's no way you can anticipate that. You just kind of have to hold your hands up and say, great choice, But I think just cover the really big players that have the potential to go huge, and you should be good to win that marker. So good luck, mate, with the 35 lead. Wow, 2-2. Bloody hell, that's awesome. Looks like we're missing another classic now, Jay.
Great, of course.
Awesome. So they're just one goal away from progressing now, right?
Yeah, they score again and they go through on away goals.
How long left?
Looks as if it's the 59th minute, so half an hour.
Okay, still a bit of time to go.
Long time to go.
That's going to be an interesting game for the FPL family household to watch.
Yeah, sure.
That Champions League final is going to divide the house. You stay in the lounge, I'll watch it in the bedroom. Let's not go anywhere near each other, just in case.
One little tip that I wanted to mention, actually, it's not anything groundbreaking and it doesn't give you loads of information, but it's worth keeping note, at least with the FPL game anyway. So back to obviously Fantasy Premier League. Now, if you're in a mini league with everyone else, and you're trying to stay ahead of someone or you're trying to get an idea of what they're doing, obviously we never know what transfers they're making. But if you go onto the web version, I don't know if you can do this on phone, but if you go to the web version and you go to the mini league and you find your opponent that you're trying to get information on, when you click their team, it will say on the right-hand side column below game week transfers. And it will tell you how many transfers they've made that game week before the game week has started. So if it says, for example, 2 game week transfers, that person's made 2 changes and potentially taken a hit to their team. So it's nothing groundbreaking, but it does give you a clue And then obviously you can look to see, did they use a transfer the week before? Did they have 2 free transfers or did they not? And that way you can figure out if they have taken a hit or not. And if you're trying to stay ahead of someone, you can kind of think, well, he's taken a hit there. Maybe it's worth me not taking a hit then. It's not much information, but there is something to take note of. Maybe not, people don't know that. You can see if they've made early transfers, it gives you an idea of how many changes they're making. And if they have 3 or 4 game week transfers, they're going big and they're trying to catch you, that kind of thing. So, worth keeping a note of that as a little tip.
I'd also say if they are doing that, potentially make the same amount of transfers about, you're not losing ground because of hits.
Yes.
You can figure out that they're taking them.
Yeah, very good point. Because you can go back to the week before, and if they've carried a transfer, then you think, they've used 2, then it was for free. But either way, it gives you the info. You know what you need to do to stay level, like you say. If they've taken a -4, I can take a -4 now, and we're still level. So great stuff. Okay. So Michael Svedin, this is a good one for you, Jay, actually. He wants to know, for Son replacements, what you think about Palace midfielders. Obviously, you've gone for Milivojevic. So is he someone you'd consider as a Son replacement? And obviously, we've got the likes of Townsend as well, who had a great game against Cardiff. So what do we think about Palace midfield?
I mean, I definitely think the game they've got coming up, there's going to be goals in it. So I like the idea of a Palace transfer. Of course, you've got Zaha, who is the main man, but he's a forward. It would have been nice to be last year when he was in midfield. But Townsend has looked good. MacArthur's looked good. Milivojevic has the penalty, has the set. Of course, now that I've got him, he's not going to get them anymore. I would actually probably... I'd want Zaha if I was making a transfer for that game. I just don't know which Palace midfield points. Where if you think Bournemouth are going to score, I think it's a bit easier to predict where the points will come from Bournemouth's midfield rather than Palace's. Same with sides like Everton. You look at their midfield, you think Siggy, Charlison, those are the 2. Whereas that game just gone showed that Palace, you've got a lot of midfield. And you may just end up, like I did, on one.
Yeah, sure. What about you, Kurt? Have you got any Palace players at the moment? And if not, have you considered any for this week?
I did very briefly. Oh, I actually have gone very close. I did very briefly bring in Wan-Bissaka again. I can't remember when I brought him in. I'll have a quick look. It wasn't for more than 2 game weeks maximum. I know he played in game week 37. 36, no, just for game week 37. I was tempted to keep him because I look at that fixture against Bournemouth, and it's sort of fixture you can look at. The fixture difficulty rating says 2. You look at Bournemouth at home, you think there's potential goals in that. There's a chance for attacking returns as well, maybe even a clean sheet. But I've been messed around so much by going with that mentality this season and thinking I've got a defender for this team and an attacker for this team, and it's 3-3, and my defender gets 0 points, and that attacker for the other team, no goals, no assists, subbed after 55 minutes. So I've gone against that because I don't believe in Bournemouth. I think if anyone's a troll, I think Bournemouth's the biggest troll for me. But if I were to actually be logical, and the fact that I'm not looking at my rank thinking I need to watch out before I make sure I finish below the 2 million mark, they do look good. And I think if Milivojevic does get a few chances and gets the penalties and the free kicks, the corners, whatever he may take or not take in terms of Jay owning him, there's a good chance from there. But the one I'd look out for is Townsend. I think it's a weird one, Andros Townsend. You'd say probably had unfulfilled potential for most of his career, but I think he's having a good solid season, and I think he could end off this season with a bang, a bigger bang than his banger against Man City. But watch out for Townsend, I think. Just got a feeling.
Yeah, the thing with me, I mean, I've got to be honest, I haven't considered Palace options that much this week. That's just me personally. I mean, looking at Townsend now, there's no run there. There's no consistency. He's not a player I would bring in to think this is the week he's going to... I know you can never predict it, but he's kind of had the good game week against Cardiff, but he has never really put a run together this season, you know? So I still wouldn't trust him. I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. However, lots of people are tipping this game to be a high-scoring one, and even Jay just said that. So, Jay, you got your concentration face on now. So, are you good to answer a question at the moment, or are you still kind of sorting?
If you repeat the question.
I kind of want to know from you, like, I've read on Twitter a lot about people touting this game as like a high-scoring one, and I kind of want to know just why you think it would be potentially high-scoring.
Well, the two reasons for me, we're still talking about Palace and Bournemouth.
Yeah, because I haven't considered Palace players that much, but everyone seems to think this is going to be quite a high-scoring game. So,
well,
sell
one
to
part
me.
of it is Palace's defence doesn't seem just generally their performances as good compared. So I think that's one part of it. They're an attacking side. They are a very good side. Although I think my mic has reason my concentration face.
Okay. For me listening, it was perfect. Looks like I didn't realise that. But okay.
So if you carry on talking, I'll
sure. But so yeah, we'll move back to that later. I'm just kind of trying to decide myself whether Palace options are really worth it. But for me, I can't see myself bringing in a Palace midfielder. There just isn't any consistency there. MacArthur isn't an option for me. He's very cheap, but he doesn't deliver enough points. Townsend is the potentially explosive one, but like I said, he doesn't. It's so inconsistent. It's one explosion and then that's it, you know. Don't get me wrong, he's an explosive player. He could deliver, and Bournemouth do leak a lot of goals, especially away from home, you know, or at home as well. But yeah, the one player I would think I would kind of trust more is Zaha for Palace, and obviously he's a forward, so I know that's not too helpful.
I think going on your point about him, you know, in one explosion, then a bit of a respite. Last game week, goal and assist, 13 points against Cardiff. Is that maybe the warning sign that we need that maybe he's going to have tomorrow or Sunday off?
Yeah, it's so hard to say. He's got that potential to have a cracking game, but at his price, which is quite cheap, you know, around the 5.5 million mark. Now, with me replacing Son, I just can't see Townsend being at the top of that list. You know, there's no chance. There's so many, in my opinion, more tempting options, which kind of leads into a question from Steve Wynyard, who, by the way, has done a super chat. So thank you very much, Steve. I really appreciate that, bud. So we'll get onto your question now. So he's obviously wants to discuss Son replacements. And he's asking, is Son to Bernardo Silva a no-brainer? Which is obviously a move which, to me, it looks not nailed on, but the strongest contender for me now to replace Son with is Bernardo Silva, probably. Kurt, you've got Son, haven't you?
I did have for the -2, yeah. Okay, he's not there anymore.
So what were the players that kind of went through your mind? You know, and was Bernardo Silva one of them?
Yeah, the two Silvers immediately strike out because the first thing I did when I got on tonight, I looked at midfielders, sorted it by price, and just thought, right, everyone under Son's price that I transfer him out. I think it was 8.4 for me, or 8.6, something like that. Who could I afford? And David Silva was one, Bernardo Silva was another. And they're two consistent Man City players. I think with Man City, Sterling hasn't really been performing too well. Sane, he starts one, is rested for another. And Pep did not seem too happy with his performance when he came on in the Leicester game. So that I was going to do Sane for a bit of differential. I think that'd max out my money, but I thought the way Pep was barking down orders at Sane, I did not feel confident in him starting.
And on the contrary, Bernardo Silva, that game looked more threatening than Sterling did even, you know, like Bernardo Silva, he didn't return points.
Yeah.
But he just looked so dangerous. Every time he touched the ball, he was constantly cutting in on his left. so many touches inside the box, a lot of goal attempts. I think 5 goal attempts in that game alone. So he passed the eye test for me in that Leicester game for sure.
It might be worth, when Jay's back, bringing in the underlying stats if he knows any about Bernardo Silva, because it looked as if he had a good game. And when and I think either of the Silvers, Bernardo or David, when they're on their game and they're floating about, they're the hardest players to mark. With Sterling, he's going to run at you, he's going to get in behind. With Bernardo Silva, David Silva, they're just going to float here, there, and everywhere. And I think Bernardo Silva's definitely one. But that would be the logical thing. Maybe even a Pogba, if you're willing to take a ridiculous risk. I do think it's a ridiculous risk. You've got the Spurs players, other attackers, Ericsson and Ali. But looking at the 2-2 currently, in which Ajax almost scored again, apparently, having heard the commentary.
Oh, really?
Maybe them playing 90 minutes tonight, not being rested, I don't know if they're going to play 90 minutes tonight, means that they won't be fully fit and fully ready and match sharp for the weekend. But then you've also got the risky ones. I mean, I quite like Shaqiri. I did see in the chat earlier someone, I think it might have been Brian Yule, who said, is Moura now essential for the weekend, which is brings up a point you mentioned about Townsend being very explosive. Got brace tonight. I looked back at his form and I thought, 6.2 points per game. That's not bad. But I looked at his last 5. No goals, no assists. No goals, no assists. All for the last 4, but 3 goals in a hat-trick performance against Huddersfield.
Yeah, which
that's
kind
his last
of
5.
That kind
it
of
makes it look a lot better than it is.
Yeah, that skews it quite a bit, doesn't it?
It skews it for sure. And Moura probably should have returned more points. I mean, against Bournemouth, he had a couple of chances, and obviously that keeper, Travers, I think his name was, made a lot of good saves, but Moura probably didn't do himself any favours because his shots, he probably should have got a goal or 2 at least. He was through on goal a couple of times there. So positioning-wise, if you watch Moura play, he's an exciting option because he does get into some good positions and he plays very far forward. And I've got to admit, Moura did not come into my considerations once, but obviously that's forgetting tonight. He has got 2 goals tonight. So, and they scored 6 goals against Everton last time. It's a worth consideration. But Steve, personally, Bernardo Silva is the no-brainer. If you don't want to get creative with it, I mean, he's, I think, the second most transferred in, maybe the most transferred in, or right up there this week. He does feel like the no-brainer, the obvious one, and a player that I probably will end up getting because at the start of the game week before the Son situation, Bilva was a differential. Now, so many managers who owned Son are going to go to Bilva that he won't be as big of a differential as he was going to be. But still not heavily owned. I think he's around about, in the top 10,000, about 8 to 10% owned, at the moment. So it's still quite nice stats there. Jay, are you all good?
Hopefully.
Cool. Well, guys, let us know in the chat now if Jay keeps breaking up. But we'll move to Jay. So we mentioned it earlier, but you've obviously replaced Son. You made the perfect move. It's worked out well. You've got Milivojevic now. If you hadn't have replaced Son, you were in the situation. Would you make that same move this week, or which other players would you consider? And would Bernardo Silva be right up there for you?
I think for me, a lot of it is purely down to the fact that it's right near the end of the season. If it wasn't, I probably would look at Bernardo Silva and think no-brainer. It's a nice, easy move. He's a player that does look on form, so I can definitely see why it would be a no-brainer. But because it's game week 38, I almost look at it as if, is that the kind of player I want to bring in that could really change my rank in the final game week?
Yeah.
And for some reason, he just doesn't fill me with much confidence in more than just 1 goal or 1 assist.
Yeah, got you.
Having looked at his underlying stats, there's some promise there. 38 penalty area touches in the last 6 matches he's played in. 19 attempts on goal, 10 of those from inside the box, 7 shots on target. But when we look at the type of chances he's getting, he's only had 1 chance that would be considered a big chance. And while he's created 15 chances, none of those chances he created has been a big chance for another player. So it just doesn't seem like, despite the fact he is clearly a massive player for them, that he actually has that much threat as far as the kind of FPL points he's going to return in a game. So for me, comparing him to, say, the likes of Sigurdsson, Redmond, who I just think, while they may be not as good players as Bernardo Silva, I just think they can be a bit more explosive on their day than Bernardo Silva can be. And because it's game week 38, I kind of want that explosive player to come in and make a real difference.
Yeah. So Redmond and Sigurdsson are quite high on your list this week, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, it does help that Redmond's playing Huddersfield. That's a big factor in that. But if you just look at...
very tempting.
If you look at expected goal involvement, the likes of Nathan Redmond and Sigurdsson are higher up than Bernardo Silva. So whilst he's a great player, he's below a lot of players as far as the likelihood or the type of chances and the type of assists they make. Them being converted into FPL points is below the likes of Redmond, it's below the likes of Fraser, Diogo Jota. Paul Pogba still has a higher expected goal involvement, although I wouldn't suggest bringing him in. But then you've got the likes of Maddison still above him, Ryan Babel. So there's definitely players that I feel like have a higher ceiling than Bernardo Silva does.
Yeah. So Steve wants to know, just to clarify, so if he gets... It sounds like he's trying to hold rank by getting, he says if he wants to hold rank, should he get Bernardo Silva, or if he's looking to gain on someone else, should he go different? Like, would you agree with that? Like, is getting Bernardo Silva holding rank? I mean, he's still quite a differential, I mean, okay, so he's 85k, and he's looking just to finish top 100k. So he's wants to kind of batten down the hatches and secure that. And he's 15, he's got quite a bit of a gap there. I would say probably yes, because in the top 100k, lots of people will own Son, and therefore Bernardo Silva will be probably the heaviest transferred in. We could probably look on... there's lots of websites that show the most common transfer trends. So maybe when we get a second, we can look and see what the most transferred for Son is. But I mean, even Fraser could be a bit of a rank holder, because Fraser is quite highly owned, isn't he? We haven't really talked about Ryan Fraser. So what do you reckon, Kurt? Have you considered Ryan Fraser at all? I mean, he's quite highly owned, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's a point that we've all spoke about briefly tonight, is that, well, I know I'm definitely of a thought that last game, I think it's a goal fest. I think Bournemouth love their goals. I think that's one of the things you associate with Bournemouth over the last couple of years. They've not got the best defence, but they'll give other teams a few problems as well. And I think you've just got to look at what Ryan Fraser's done this season, and you think, there's no harm in bringing him in. He's quite well owned. So I think you look at over 22.5% ownership. You look at his recent games, his last 4, he's grabbed 4 assists, 1 goal. The only blank was at home to Fulham. So it's a case of when you don't expect him to score points, at home to Spurs, he'll grab an assist and he'll get a clean sheet point and he'll grab some bonus points. Home to Fulham, you wouldn't expect it. So you look at that game, and I think you look at Palace away, you think that's a tight game. Normally you'd think maybe a 1 goal in it. This is the game Ryan Fraser lives on as Ziyech hits the post for Ajax. I think it's not a bad option. I think the reason I transferred Wan-Bissaka out is because I think there's going to be a lot of goals in the game. Rather annoyingly, I probably should have brought Fraser in for Shaqiri, if I'm being perfectly honest. But my transfer's been made, so can't go back now.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're looking at his returns right now, but I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that both Fraser and Wilson returned more recently, like second half of the season, have returned more away than they have at home.
Yeah, very good point.
Well,
looking at it here, Southampton away from home, he got an assist. Brighton away from home, he grabbed a goal and 2 assists. Huddersfield away from home, he grabbed a goal and assist. They're not bad little games to get, but I think if you look further than the last 4 games, you can go back. The last 4 games, it's game week 34. His last returns before that were game week 30. Then before that, you've got to look at game week 21 at home to Watford, where it's a goal and assist. So maybe the good run of form it's coming at the right time, but another player that has been explosive in spurts this season. But he's having one of those spurts. But has it ended from Tottenham, or will it continue? Is the big one?
That's the thing. Like Jay said, it is quite a nice matchup, really. And this is why Fraser would be higher on my list as a Son replacement than a Palace midfielder. Even though Palace are at home, they're the team that aren't playing well at home this season. They're better on the road, and Bournemouth have been better on the road as well lately. So Bournemouth are an away side against a team who aren't playing well at home. So, yeah, in Steve's case, I think to replace Son to hold rank, I think Fraser and Bernardo Silva are probably... Look, Bernardo Silva is still a slight differential, but lots will be bringing him in. So I would consider him a bit of a shield pick, as people like to put it. And then maybe like a Redmond would be the differential to bump yourself up the rankings if you're looking for a potentially explosive player to gain rank. But at 85k and you're looking to finish in the top 100, yeah, I think getting Bernardo Silva or Fraser should see you well there, Steve. And yeah, all the best with it, mate. I hope you finish in the top 100k. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Okay, this is an interesting one. I like this. Brian Newell wants to know, with Kante being out, injured, is Ruben Loftus-Cheek worth a consideration at 5.2? Because he has been in decent form lately. He's kind of nailed down his place over Barkley lately. And I guess with Kante out, that kind of just solidifies it a bit more. There's one less midfield option. What do we think about RLC as a potential uber differential in the last game week? Anyone?
Go on, Jay.
I mean, I did,
look at the look on Jay's face.
I mean, I did consider him for Gameweek 37, and then I saw he didn't get picked, and I was very happy.
That's always the problem, isn't it?
He came on, and I wasn't happy anymore. But I really do like him as a player, and I'm annoyed that Chelsea haven't given him more game time sooner.
Yeah.
He would definitely, I think, with an extended run in the side, be someone to consider at that price point. A bit very similar to Hudson-Odoi before the injury. If you think he's going to continuously play, then I think he is definitely a shout. I just never know for certain if they will play him or not. Are they going to save him for their final?
We've got the Europa League as well, haven't they? Yeah, I keep forgetting that.
And just no side out that aren't first, second, or seventh and below really appeal to me. Purely because they just all seem to be wanting to not win games. Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs, Man United. Just I look at those sides and nothing about those sides excites me except for maybe Hazard. So I probably wouldn't go there just because I know they have just beaten Watford, but it was Watford. They can be defensively poor at times. I just don't know what Chelsea are going to turn up. So I personally wouldn't go in that direction, but I do like him as a player. Part of me kind of wishes he went to Palace on loan again or something like that for this season, but that's looking in the past.
Yeah, there's no questioning his value, at 5.2 million now. That is, for what is a very talented player. If he was playing consistently, he would be a very popular pick, I think, at that price. Just looking at some stats here, 7 goal attempts in the last couple of game weeks, the last 4 game weeks, I think. 7 goal attempts, 20 penalty area touches for Loftus-Cheek, which is quite high, actually, getting quite far forward. We talk a lot about replacing Son this week, and to replace Son with RLC would be a bit of a push for me because it's not quite the same. It's not the equivalent to someone like a Redmond maybe, or a Ryan Fraser or Bernardo Silva. But if you had a 5 million option like Kante on your bench, because lots of people do have Kante in their squad, if you're just replacing a budget option and you're looking for a like for like at that price, then that's when I would probably look to RLC this week. If I only had like 5.2 million to spend, then I think he would be a great punt at the end, So certainly a punt. I think let's just wait until Thursday to see their lineups to give you a bit more of an inkling if he's going to start on Sunday. And yeah, it would be a royal punt, but I like a punt personally. So yeah, go for it, mate. Kurt, any thoughts on Loftus-Cheek? Is that a bit too punty, or?
I think the other thing to look at is maybe this is also a player that needs game time for next season, as Chelsea today, it was released that they have lost their appeal against their transfer embargo. So I don't know any details about it, but I'm pretty sure that means now that that's the appeal done. They can't sign anyone in the next 2 transfer windows. So they can let people leave, so the Hazards can leave for big money, but they can't sign players until next summer. Not this summer, next summer. So players like Loftus-Cheek, players like Hudson-Odoi, Hudson-Odoi is injured, but for next season they become vitally important because they can't sign any new players. So maybe Loftus-Cheek, he could get the game because he'll be first team next season. Kovacic's loan will end, so that will take him out, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek then becomes in my eyes, the way I've looked at him play this season, the odd bits here and there, a first team player next season, maybe on the left-hand side, Kante on the right, Jorginho sitting, if that's the way Sarri wants to set up. But I like the looks of Loftus-Cheek.
Sure, but yeah, it's interesting. Brian's actually commented and said it is going to be a Son replacement if he goes for this. So it would be Son to RLC, and that would allow him then to upgrade Jimenez very massively up to Aubameyang away to Burnley, and he says, are we tempted now? So I'm still not tempted by that, I don't think. But mate, look, Jimenez away to Liverpool. There's merit in that move, it could pay off massively. I'm not sure I'm feeling it, Brian, but the Son to RLC isn't too bad. I don't know if I would go for Orba this week personally, but that's just me. But yeah, Brian, mate, if you go for it, then all the best to you, So Jay, when I mentioned RLC, and obviously you gawked a bit, your face sort of said it all. There's someone else. Michael Svedin wants to know, what about Babel then as a punt? What about Babel? And I'm getting the feeling this will be your face will light up a bit more with this. It's got a feeling you'll like Babel a bit more.
I do like him as a punt. I know for some reason Fulham decided that now that they aren't going to be playing in the Premier League for much longer, that they might as well give it a go. So Ryan Babel looks good even when Fulham looked very, very poor. And now that Fulham side seems to be improving a little bit, he still looks really good. Potentially he's trying to play for a move to another Premier League club during the summer. He might be trying to prove something. So I do really like him as differential going into the final game week of the season. And I mean, against Newcastle at home, Newcastle have been decent recently, but have occasionally slipped up. Could do it again. Newcastle don't really have anything to play for. Whereas Fulham, it kind of seems like Fulham are playing for pride now. Like they want to prove that potentially they are a Premier League
pressure's
team.
Off. Yeah. They've really turned a corner. They've defended better. I mean, if they had played like this the whole season, they might have been okay,
Yeah, and I think potentially no one is really going to look in that direction, which makes him the perfect differential.
Yeah, for sure. Again, he's not someone he's someone I've considered, but he's not on top of the list. There's so many options, and for me, Bernardo Silva, Redmond, maybe Fraser, they're sort of the higher up on the list for me. But as a punt, I do like it because Babel's been in very good form. His stats are decent. He passes the eye test. He looks the most likely to score for them. Mitrovic is struggling for goals, so he has been the only outlet for them, really. And at home to Newcastle, I think Newcastle are always organised. They can defend well, but they put so much into that Liverpool game. That was kind of their final game for me. I don't know if Newcastle have that much to play for in this last fixture. Yeah, I think it's a decent punt. It's exactly that. It's a massive punt, but it's a good one as a differential, especially, again, at that price, very cheap. So I can't argue against it, to be fair, Okay. We're kind of drying up a bit on the question front now. And we didn't get any. I don't think we got a random question from Jeff this week either, unfortunately.
No,
we
didn't.
Trying to provide one, but then he didn't get back, which is a shame. But no problem. If there's any more questions, guys, get them in before we kind of start wrapping up.
One player I would like to bring up, because I did my research on him. I actually went back and looked at some seasons past, Gameweek 38s, just to see if there's any players that have a tendency to score
nice.
in Gameweek 38.
Right.
And I kind of tried to find players that either got a goal and assist, 2 goals, 2 assists, a bit more than just 1 return. And the player that stood head and shoulders above the rest was actually Marko Arnautovic. Now, of course, there is issues with the fact that does he still want to be playing for West Ham? He wants to move away. But he has managed to get 2 hauls out of the last 4 Gameweek 38s. 1 goal and 1 assist for West Ham last season. 2 assists for Stoke in 2014-15 season. And then also 1 assist in 2016-17 season, which means he got 3 returns out of the last 4 Gameweek 38s. So for me, he was the only player that had that kind of consistency. The other players that did it more than once were actually Wijnaldum, who of course has just had a bit of a blinder himself recently for Liverpool and Newcastle, and Van Aanholt has a tendency to get some big returns. He's managed it twice in the last 4 game weeks. So you could of course say that's just a coincidence. It won't happen necessarily this season, different circumstances, but those are the players that actually start as players that have managed to make a difference in Gameweek 38.
Mate, that's a really interesting stat. That really good find, mate. And yeah, obviously Arnautovic putting in a big performance in the previous week, getting 2 goals there. And he is that player that he still excites me to have him. I know he's been so off form, but at the start of the season, he was one of the first people in my team, He is such a talented player and an explosive player. And perhaps because at the end of every season, maybe now he's like, well, I need to put myself in the shop window again. He wants this move away, potentially. Maybe it's kind of like, well, I kind of need to perform. Maybe that's been his driver for the end of most seasons, It's like, I need to kind of perform here, to get the move. He got the move to West Ham. And maybe he wants to do that again now for the move, maybe to China or wherever. So,
and what I also like is it's Watford who have the FA Cup. And
they do. They've got one eye on them, haven't they?
Yeah. So
I think
Arnautovic may be a transfer I'll make.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, that's a great show, mate. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, should we have one more?
Yeah, one more, I think, yeah. We have some packing to do.
Yes, we do. So back to the punts. Anne O'Brien says, hey guys, what's thoughts on Origi as a punt? So obviously Kurt did mention Origi earlier. Kurt, do you want to expand on that? Could you see yourself getting Origi in if you hadn't made a transfer already? Do you think he's worth the punt this week at home to Wolves?
I think potentially it depends on the fitness of Firmino. Obviously he was benched on Tuesday. It also depends on the fitness of Salah, because they could also stick Salah up top and go Shaqiri out wide. They could have Salah,
worry, isn't it? It's just
I think
Salah out wide.
Klopp has made it sound like he's very likely to play him. It was something about there's rules behind potential concussions where there has to be a certain amount of time before you let them play again. Apparently Salah feels fine. Every other test they did seemed to show that he's fit. It's just you're not allowed to play a player that received a concussion too soon after they received it. So I think it's 6 days, which I think is enough time for him to play, if I'm correct with that.
Well, the Tongan played tonight, and wasn't it in the Champions League first leg that he... So that was basically a week, and he's, he missed the weekend game, and now he's playing tonight, so that kind of backs that up a little bit as well.
So yeah, I mean, for me, that is my big worry with Origi, is even if Firmino is out, you have Shaqiri as an option. And it's not like Shaqiri was a non-factor in that Barcelona game either. So I would be worried about which way he would go. But if you heard something in a press conference that suggested he was going to play, and he's definitely done better in the position than Sturridge has, I wouldn't mind him as a punt if I thought he was going to play.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, for some reason in my head, I thought he had played more than he has, Origi. I mean, he's only played 17 minutes of the last 5 game weeks. 33, 34, yeah. And that was 17 minutes against Newcastle where he got the winner, you know. So granted, he's now put in such a good performance against Barcelona that there is some merit to him starting, but it's still that element of risk. You know, it's like, oh, I'm going into the last game week of the season and I'm using a transfer to bring in someone that might not even play, you know, and that would worry me. And against a Wolves side that will be very up for it, I just think there's better punts.
Oh my word!
What's happened, Kurt?
What's happened?
Lucas Moura's just scored in the 96th minute, I believe.
96th.
But are they still a goal behind, or
No, that's it. They go through and away
They
goals
go through
now.
on away,
no way? Wait, so
All
have they scored
England
4
final.
tonight?
No, they scored 3. It
That
was
is
1-0
last
in the
days,
first
honestly.
leg, wasn't it?
Referee will blow the whistle the minute they kick off.
Oh,
That is absolutely last kick of the game.
Oh wow, we've missed another classic then.
Well, I missed
And
both
that's a
class
Lucas
as well.
Moura hat trick as well.
I swear Kurt said that Ajax had scored again, so I thought Ajax were on 4.
No, he
or
said they've been
something.
close
No.
a couple of times.
Okay. Wow,
I do kind of feel bad for Ajax.
absolute scenes.
I do really like that
Oh,
Ajax
yeah.
side, so I do feel
I
bad
feel
for
bad for Ajax.
I feel bad for us 3 missing it, man.
them. Look,
Lucas Moura's got a hat trick. Will he play at the weekend and score like that? It also opens up the door, just take it a bit off FPL, 2 double English finals.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
could be
Yeah,
Arsenal
because
Chelsea.
Arsenal Chelsea still on for the Europa League tomorrow, so have to wait and see.
I can't believe I've missed 2 absolute classics. I missed last night's one, and now I've missed tonight's one. I can't believe that. Oh,
That's it. Next season, I have to play Champions League fantasy football.
yeah. Wow. Yeah, I guess that has to make Moura an interesting option for Son, you know. A hat trick against Ajax.
So yeah,
Why not?
everything I said about Spurs not looking like they're up for it. I should have said it earlier, and then maybe Son would have done well recently.
Yeah, that could be the turning point. And it does help that the Champions League final is so far away that
Yeah.
there's less chance of rotation. You know, I think both teams I guess Spurs already have top 4 wrapped up. It's a shame that they don't need a couple of points to secure top 4. That would just solidify it a bit more, because then they'd have to put a very strong team out. And Everton are defending so well at the moment, aren't they? Like, so many clean sheets, you know. So it's a tough one, because you've got the Moura Hall tonight, but against an Everton side that are very good. So tricky one. But he's got to be in with a shout now, hasn't he? He's in the question. Okay. So I think that's...
Yeah, should we call it there?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up there, guys. Hopefully we've answered quite a few questions there. Lots of different Son replacements, and yeah, hopefully it was helpful.
As far as I saw in the chat, people are saying, is this the last stream of the season? I believe we are going to try one more stream at the end, just to wrap everything up and potentially say our thanks for what's been a pretty good season for us. New channel, done quite well, so thank you guys so much for the support. We do have some polls, only 2. I suppose with there only being one more game week, there isn't too many questions you can really have anymore. Of course, we do have the regular Who to Captain for game week 38. We have the winner at the moment being Mane at 33%. What is surprising is that Aguero is then at 60%, but there's no love for Sterling or Salah. Now, potentially that's fear on Salah's part of not playing, potentially.
Yeah.
Of course, you
true.
never know. There could be more complications with the head injury that we're just not aware about yet. Surprised with Sterling, though, being at 0. And then 50% of people are going for a differential captain. So a lot of people are playing the sword captaincy strategy instead of the shield. And then we also have, are you interested in any of these differentials? And so the options were Nathan Redmond, Yuri Tillemans, Marko Arnautovic, and Solomon Rondon. And I put other, just in case people are thinking of others. Others got 40%, which was tied with Nathan Redmond at 40%. So a lot of love for Nathan Redmond, with Marko Arnautovic at 20%. So interesting to see, as always, your guys' thoughts on all these matters. It's nice to get a collective opinion. Would just like to thank you all for all the support this season once again. Get better, Nim. It's been strange without you here.
It has actually. It's been weird.
And also, apologies for the technical difficulties. I have no idea what happened. Everything was working fine yesterday when I did a podcast, so just one of those things. But we'll look into it, and I'm sure we'll be bringing you lots of content as well for next season. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and hit that like button if you have enjoyed this stream. The replay will be up as soon as possible. And thank you guys for joining us. See you later.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah.